At this time, I'd like to ask all unauthorized persons to exit the chamber. Chair recognizes our distinguished friend from Chickamauga.
Good morning, Mr. President. It's a wonderful day at our state capitol, and I can see our men and women of the chamber are out stirring up game in the wilderness. They'll be here soon. Mr. President, the journal has been read and has found one correction that should be made to the report of the committees made on March 14th. I would like to ask that the chair recognize the senator from the 56th to explain the correction.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 56th.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Rules Chairman. I rise to make a correction on the report of the Committee on Public Safety that was reported on March the 14th. The report erroneously read, House Bill 171 do pass. I would ask unanimous consent that the report of the committee be corrected to read that House Bill 171 do pass by substitute, LC 39-2231 TS.
The senator from the 56th has asked for unanimous consent that the Senate Journal from the 32nd legislative day be corrected so that the report from the Committee on Public Safety reads, HB 170 do pass by substitute. Is there objection? The chair hears none. The journal is corrected as requested. Is there objection to dispensing with the reading of the journal? Hearing none, the reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. All senators who have bills or resolutions to introduce, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. Mr. Secretary, will you start by reading first reference and Senate bills and resolutions?
Senate Bill 243 by Senator Maltz of the 53rd and others, a bill we titled enactment Code Section 4286 of the OCGA relating to special license plates, promoting or supporting certain worthy agencies.
Public safety.
Senate Resolution 364 by Senator Dolezal of the 27th, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to provide that no person shall be eligible to serve more than 2 consecutive terms as Lieutenant Governor, to provide for the submission of this amendment for ratification or rejection.
Government oversight.
Senate Resolution 365 by Senator Ligon III and others, a resolution committing President Donald J. Trump for other purposes.
Rules.
Senate Resolution 366 by Senator Anderson of the 43rd, a resolution creating the Senate Passenger Vehicle Seat Safety Belt Study Committee.
Rules.
Senate Resolution 367 by Senator Beach of the 21st and others, a resolution to create the Senate Gaming and Pari-Mutual Wagering on Horse Racing in Growing Georgia's.
Rules.
Senate Resolution 369 by Senator Heath of the 31st and others, a resolution urging the Department of Natural Resources to recognize Saturday, September 28, 2019.
Natural resources.
Senate Resolution 371 by Senator Kirk of the 13th and others, a resolution creating the Senate Protections from Sexual Predators Study Committee for other purposes.
Rules.
Senate Resolution 374 by Senator Jones of the 10th and others, a resolution recognizing Reverend Marlon Harrison, New Life Church, and dedicating a bridge in their honor. And
transportation.
Senate Resolution 376 by Senator Martin of the 9th, a resolution urging the President of the United States and the United States Congress to enact legislation securing the citizenship of internationally adopted adult.
Rules.
Senate Resolution 377 by Senator Karen Shack of the 48th and others, a resolution committing the Muslim Advocacy Day participants and for other reasons.
Rules.
Mr. President, that concludes the order.
First reading and reference of House bills and resolutions.
House Bill 594 by Representative Buckner, the 137th. The bill will be titled an act to amend an act to reincorporate the town of Waverly Hall in Harris County, approved April 10th, 2004.
State and local government.
Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Secretary will now read reports of standing committees, please.
Mr. President, Senate Committee on Finance has had urged to raise the following legislation instructing the board same back to the Senate for recommendation. House Bill 101 do pass, House Bill 405 do pass, House Bill 314 do pass by substitute, House Bill 344 do pass, House Bill 507 do pass, House Bill 220 do pass by substitute. Senator Hofstadter, 52nd. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities has had urged to raise the final legislation instructing the board same back to the Senate for recommendation. House Bill 242 do pass by substitute, House Bill 253 do pass. Senator Cowser to the 46th. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Science and Technology has had urged to raise the final legislation instructing the board same back to the Senate for recommendation. House Bill 481 do pass by substitute, House Bill 341 do pass, House Bill 197 do pass. Submitted by Senator Unterman to the 45th. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Government Oversight has had urged to raise the final legislation instructing the report back to the Senate for recommendation. House Bill 392 do pass, House Bill 315 do pass by substitute, House Bill 456 do pass. Senator Heath of the 31st. Mr. President, Committee on State and Local Government Operations had urged to raise the final legislation instructing the board same back to the Senate for recommendation. Senate Bill 241 do pass, House Bill 380 do pass, House Bill 559 do pass. Senator Kirk of the 13th. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor has had our consideration of following legislation instructing the board to send back to the following recommendation. House Bill 63 to pass by substitute, House Bill 99 to pass by substitute, House Bill 128 to pass, House Bill 367 to pass, House Bill 491 to pass, submitted by Senator Jones of the 20th, by Senator Kirk of the 13th. And Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Judiciary has had our consideration of final legislation to report same back to the Senate for recommendation. House Bill 64 to pass by Senator Stone of the 23rd. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Secretary will now read bills and resolutions for the second time.
Senate Resolution 276 by Senator Unton of the 45th and others. Congress eliminate 5-month waiting period for disability insurance benefits for individuals living with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Urged House Bill 171 by Representatives Barr of the 103rd and others. Motor vehicles use of mounts on windshields for the sport of wireless telecommunications devices, standalone electronic devices under certain circumstances allow. House Bill 196 by Representative Benton of the 31st, retirement and pensions. Each public retirement system trustee to complete appropriate education applicable to his or her fiduciary duties require. House Bill 225 by Representative Rich of the 97th and others. Motor vehicles reference date to federal regulations regarding the safe operation of commercial motor vehicles and carriers. Update House Bill 226 by Representative LaBrescia of the 169th and others. Courts additional penalty for violation of traffic laws or ordinances under Joshua's law and that extends sunset. House Bill 246 by Representative Silcox of the 52nd and others. Evidence revised manner by which depositions taken at the instance of state are paid. House Bill 279 by Representative Lumsden of the 12th and others. Revenue and taxation. Certain law enforcement officers may use department vehicles relative to certain approved off-duty jobs provide. House Bill 300 by Representative Smith of the 133rd and others. Health redesignate continuing care retirement communities as life plan communities. House Bill 319 by Representative Williams of the 148th and others. Georgia Firefighters Pension Fund members' benefits payable after death shall be paid to his or her estate when such member failed to designate a beneficiary or his or her designated beneficiaries are deceased. Provide. House Bill 325 by Representative Clark of the 147th and others. Law enforcement officers and agencies' records of investigation of an officer by Georgia Peace Officer Standards and Training Council shall be retained for 30 years. Provide. House Bill 387 by Representative Lumsden of the 12th and others. Property liens in favor of private, nonprofit, volunteer fire departments for instances of fire services that are requested by property owners. Provide. House Bill 471 by Representative Saines of the 180th and others. Motor vehicles implied consent notices revised. House Bill 514 by Representative Tanner of the 9th and others. Georgia Mental Health Reform and Innovation Commission create. House Bill 525 by Representative Stevens of the 164th. Georgia International Maritime Trade Center renamed to Savannah Convention Center. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
At this time, we'd like to introduce our Doctor of the Day, and I'd like to call upon the Senator from the 6th to introduce our Doctor of the Day.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am honored to introduce the Doctor of the Day, Dr. Scott Swayze, who is the past president of Pinnacle Orthopedics. He specializes in general orthopedics, total joint replacement, and sports medicine. He received his BS in biomedical engineering from Vanderbilt and his medical degree from the University of Mississippi. And then did his residency here at the Emory University affiliated hospitals. He currently lives in Atlanta, Georgia in the best Senate district ever, Senate District 6, with his wife Carol, and in his free time enjoys traveling, church, and activities with his 5 children. Join me in welcoming Dr. Swayze.
Thank you, Senator Jordan. Just want to thank each of y'all for this as we're working hard. I know y'all are putting in long hours, and as a physician in Georgia and in Atlanta, thank you for all you do for the doctors, the hospitals, and the patients in Georgia.
Thank you. This time, it's now time for our morning roll call. Time for our morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? Chair recognizes the senator from the 33rd.
Good morning, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 38th and 39th.
Without objection, the senators from the 38th and 39th are excused. Chair recognizes the senator from the 55th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 44th. She's out of the Capitol on business.
Without objection, the senator from the 44th is excused. Any other motions to excuse? Secretary will call the roll of senators. Signify your presence by voting the yea switch. The secretary will unlock the machine. All right, it's now time for a morning devotional. It is now time for a morning devotional. All senators, please take your seats and cease all audible conversations. All senators, please take your seats and cease all audible conversations. Doorkeepers, please secure the doors. I'd like to recognize a senator from the 50th to lead us in our pledge today and to introduce our chaplain of the day.
Join in the pledge to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the Georgia flag. I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag, to the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, moderation. Thank you. It's a great honor for me today to have the opportunity to introduce our chaplain of the day. Our chaplain of the day is Reverend David Ritzie. He is the senior pastor of the First Baptist Church in Decoa, Georgia. Now, I go to a small church out in the country. I go to a small church where we still have singings on Sunday night, and we had one last night, and we invited our city cousins to come. Reverend Ritzie's church came. We had a good time. We were just picking numbers out of the hymnal and singing songs, and he has a great voice. Where I go to church, the little church that I go to, as a senator from Bremen knows, we go to church in Franklin County. The cemetery on the other side of the road, we bury them in Stevens County, and then if you look up the road 100 yards, you're in Banks County. Of course, all three of those are in District 50, so that's a good thing for me. But Reverend Ritzie has been the senior pastor at the First Baptist Church of Decoa since 2010. Previously, he served as a youth minister at the First Baptist Church from 2002 to 2010. He's a graduate of Liberty University and also Liberty Baptist Theological Seminary. In small communities like our communities, the schools and churches are still kind of the center of the community and the community activities. And I know this about Reverend Ritzie. He has a tremendous rapport with young people, as evidenced by his service as a youth pastor, and he also has an excellent rapport with all ages in his church. He does a great job in our community, so it's an honor for me to introduce to you Reverend David Ritzie. Also has his wife Laura with him today, and they have two sons, Justin and Michael, and he enjoys riding his Harley. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Reverend Ritzie.
Thank you, Senator Wilkinson. It is a privilege to be here today. Let me start by saying that to ask a pastor to have a devotion and a prayer in 5 minutes is like passing certain legislation. It's just not going to take place, is it? It's an honor to stand here, and as I thought about what I could share today, I thought if I were to ask the question, traits associated with a good leader, what response would I get? I would have tremendous responses. There are many traits that can and should be associated with a good leader, but for sake of time, I want to focus on just three. A good leader is wise. The book of James, chapter 3, verse 17 says, "But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere." Wisdom is more than just knowing a lot about something. We realize that is knowledge. Wisdom is the ability to make honest, correct judgments and decisions. Honest judgments, honest decisions. Matter of fact, Thomas Jefferson said, honesty is the first chapter of the book of wisdom. So a good leader is wise, but a good leader is also open to accountability. Proverbs chapter 27, verse 17 says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." In other words, accountability takes place. Someone once said, accountability is the difference between success and failure. Why is this? When a person will not take responsibility, when they won't allow themselves to be held accountable and things start to go the wrong way, they do not take ownership and they go into what is known as spectator mode. They just sit around and watch things fail. It is when one takes ownership that they step into solution mode when things are not as they should be. Finally, a good leader is a person of integrity. Again, in the book of Proverbs, chapter 10, verse 9, it says, "Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out." You see, a person of integrity does more than talk the talk. They walk the walk. In other words, they conduct themselves in an authentic manner. In his letter to the church at Philippi, Paul instructed the Philippians to be secure and blameless until the day of Christ. The word sincere is a Latin word meaning without wax. In Paul's day, if someone wanted an authentic statue of fine quality, they would travel to the artisans' marketplace in the Quad of Rome, and they would look for booths bearing the sign Sera, which means without wax. It was at these booths that one could find the real thing, no flaws, no cover-ups, no shady deals. In the same sense, a person of integrity is real. A person of integrity is sincere. A person of integrity is authentic. So a real leader is wise. A good leader is open to accountability. A good leader is a person of integrity. And can I just say that I feel it is the duty of every believer to lift up our leaders in prayer, both individually in the areas represented and then as you gather together here to represent this state. My prayer for you is that each of you will be filled with wisdom to make right decisions, that you will have the strength and the courage to step into solution mode when things are not as they should be, and that as men and women of integrity, you will always conduct yourselves in an authentic manner. May God bless you as you continue to serve the people of this wonderful state. Now let us pray. Gracious God, fill each of us with your wisdom. Give us courage to take responsibility for our actions and then fortitude to be sharpened when sharpening is required. Father, may we walk as men and women of integrity, and may we always be found conducting ourselves in an authentic manner. Thank you, Father, for your love and your mercy and grace and forgiveness. Give us the strength and the courage to show others the same. And now may the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be pleasing to you, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen.
Are there any unanimous consents? All right, moving on. We have some very special guests with us today that we'd like to introduce to the chamber. Mr. Secretary, will you read the resolution?
Senate Resolution 125 by Senator Thompson the 14th and others, a resolution recognizing and commending Trevor Lawrence of Cartersville, Georgia, and for other purposes. Whereas Trevor Lawrence, a native of Cartersville, Georgia, and a freshman at Clemson University, earned his place as the starting quarterback for the three-time defending ACC champions. And whereas Trevor has been selected as the 2018 ACC Rookie of the Year, the 2018 Offensive Rookie of the Year, and 5 times as the ACC Rookie of the Week, all because of his tremendous athletic abilities. Whereas Trevor Lawrence, though one of the most successful young athletes in this great nation, has maintained his humble nature and continues to make family a top priority in his life, and his strong sense of loyalty, unwavering commitment, and perseverance set an example for all to admire. Now therefore be resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend Trevor Lawrence for not only his remarkable athletic record, but also his character off the field, and extend best wishes for his continued athletic and academic success at Clemson University. That concludes the order.
Chair would like to recognize the senator from the 14th to introduce our very special guest today.
Thank you, Governor. It truly is an honor today to have my beautiful wife, my sweet daughter, our dear friend Amanda Lawrence join me on the rostrum today as we honor an incredible young man. Unfortunately, Trevor's dad, Jeremy, is traveling today in Minnesota and he's not able to join us. If this young man looks familiar to you, it's because we've had him here with us with his Hurricane team for years, celebrating their state championship, incredible run over 4 years. During those 4 years, we watched as Trevor broke Deshaun Watson's state passing record with 13,902 yards and 161 passing touchdowns while leading the Canes to 41 straight wins and 2 state championships. So who is Trevor Lawrence anyway? I'm glad you asked. Trevor's the second son of Jeremy and Amanda Lawrence. He has an older brother who he remains close to named Chase, that's a phenomenal artist, and a younger sister he adores named Olivia. Yes, it is true that nearly every college program in the country courted Trevor since he was the top quarterback prospect out of Georgia and in the country, but he chose Clemson in the end. Over dinner one night, I asked his dad, why Clemson? Jeremy said, I told Trevor to choose a place that you would stay and finish your education if you could never play another down. Choose a school that fits you, he said. Clemson does exactly that. It's a school and a team that resembles Cartersville, where the coaches intimately know their players and spend quality time with them on and off the field. That's an anomaly in today's society. In fact, at many colleges, it's business first and relationships second, but not at Clemson. After arriving at Clemson, he did exactly what he's done all his life. He quietly went to work. After being awarded the quarterback role as a quarterback in Game 5, he never looked back, amassing 3,280 yards and 30 touchdowns en route to being named the National Freshman of the Year and winning the Archie Griffin Award, his college's most valuable player. Additionally, he was an MVP of both the Cotton Bowl and the National Championship game. So other than being an incredible athlete, who is this special guy? First, to all you dog fans, he handed Alabama a butt-whooping. They soon won't forget. Second, with all the hoopla and the success, he remembers who he is and who he represents. Listen, this lesson is probably one of the things I love most about my friend and this family. He's grounded in relationships. Let's start with the closeness he shares with Joey King, his former coach, that is now at Coastal Carolina. Then Dabo Swinney, his current coach. Both of these great men have strong faith that do not shy away from. Both of these men could stop coaching today and mark on society and the lives they touched would have an impact forever. Trevor is already making those marks with the people he comes in contact with. Writers and sports analysts constantly compare him to Peyton Manning. Maybe that's because he wears 16 as Peyton did. I'll leave that up to Trevor to discuss or comment on later. Finally, Trevor remains close to his family and to the Lord Jesus Christ. In fact, he has openly stated on several occasions that he is a Christian and that football is important to him, but it is not my life. It's not the biggest thing in my life. My faith is. That just comes kind of knowing who I am on the outside and inside. I just know no matter how big the situation is, it's not really going to define me. I put my identity into Christ and who he says I am and who he thinks I am. And I know that he says I am. All that to say that Clemson is proud of this Tiger because he represents them well, but he also represents Cartersville and the entire state of Georgia well. And for that, I am not only proud to call him friend, but to have him here to accept this resolution. Trevor, would you please step up and say a few words?
Good morning, y'all. I think this is my third time back. Like you said, in high school, came a few times, and it's always good to be back. Give me a reason to put on some nice clothes and wake up early. So it's good to see y'all. Thank y'all so much for having me and recognizing me. But really, this recognition is for a lot of people and everyone involved, and it's an honor to be able to accept it. But you know, my family and friends and teammates have done a lot to help me get to this point. So, but I just want to thank y'all for having me, and go Tigers.
Mr. Secretary, will you read the resolution for our next set of special guests?
Senate Resolution 375 by Senators Martin of the Ninth and others. A resolution recognizing and commending Dr. G.P. Bud Peterson upon his retirement as president of Georgia Tech and for other purposes. Whereas Dr. G.P. Bud Peterson has served as president of Georgia Tech for 10 years, during which Georgia Tech was invited to join the Association of American Universities, the first institution to receive an invitation in the previous 10 years. Whereas under his leadership, enrollment at Georgia Tech increased by 69%, with undergraduate applications more than tripling, graduate applications doubling, and the number of women in the first-year class increasing from 32 to 40%. And whereas throughout his career, Dr. Peterson has played an active role in helping establish the national education and research agendas, serving on many industry, government, and academic task force and committees, as well as congressional task force, research councils, and advisory boards. Now therefore be resolved by the Senate that the members of this body commend Dr. G.P. Bud Peterson for his many years of dedicated public service to Georgia Tech, his community, this state, and this nation, congratulate him upon the occasion of his retirement as president, and extend to him the most sincere best wishes for continued success, health, and happiness. That concludes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. It is an honor for me today to have on the rostrum with me President Bud Peterson. He's been such a great personal friend of mine throughout this entire process. And of course, I'm favorable to Georgia Tech as being that's the place where I went to school. But I think all of us owe a debt of gratitude to President Bud Peterson for the work he's done on behalf of 11 million Georgians, and his eye on technology, his eye on higher ed, and his ability to connect higher ed to the private sector like I've never seen it before. So I'd like to call upon the senator from the 9th to continue the introduction.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is truly my honor, and it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Bud Peterson to the Senate. You know, it's funny, I was thinking about, well, I didn't know how to address him, Doctor, President, because he's always just asked me to call him Bud, so he's always been Bud to me. But as you all know, he is completing his service at Georgia Tech. Over the past decade, President Peterson's leadership at Georgia Tech has advanced our school to new heights. Part of this is the transformation of the physical campus. Some may say this is done to confuse aging alums such as myself. However, I know the changes on campus have created a learning environment that's more conducive to higher education in the 21st century. Whether it's new research buildings, expansions across the connector at Tech Square, or transforming the library into a collaborative learning environment, the changes have provided students with a better opportunity for success. Now, they sent over about 3 pages of accomplishments that President Peterson has handled over the last 10 years. I'll just go over a couple of them. The first thing he's done is funding for research. It's amazing, in a time of actually a reduction in research grants, during his tenure, he's almost doubled the amount of private and public research grants that we receive at Georgia Tech. And part of this is a focus on private grants, which have gone from $70 million to $110 million over his tenure. But he's not only expanded Georgia Tech's reputation, but also its presence. Several massive corporations have moved to Atlanta partially because of the new talent coming out of Georgia Tech, which is due to Bud's intervention oftentimes. He's active in increasing interaction between businesses and students on campus, but he's also always ready to take a call from a prospect from Georgia Department of Economic Development. Because of Tech's success, enrollment in both undergrad and graduate programs have increased drastically. And at the same time, student athletes have the highest graduation success rate in the past 5 years. And I love this story. Even in the time of skyrocketing demand, Georgia Tech has increased access by offering automatic acceptance to valedictorians and salutatorians to all Atlanta public schools and accredited Georgia high schools. Mr. Peterson has also pushed for more STEM programs in high school so that our students can be equipped for a technological future, and it's no doubt that he has done so much for our school during his tenure and so much for our state. We're truly blessed to have had him here for the last 10 years. We look forward to your many successes in your retirement, and we'll ask you to come up and say a few words.
Thank you, Senator Martin, and thank you, Lieutenant Governor. It's great to have you up here in the podium. I want to thank all of you for this opportunity to serve as president for the past 10 years. This has been the highlight of one of the highlights of our career. Val and I have been enormously fortunate to be able to be at Georgia Tech and are very proud to be of the many things that we've accomplished there. I also want to thank you for your support of higher education. The state of Georgia is one of only 3 states in the country that can boast 2 public universities in the top 15 in the country. It's because of the tremendous support that we get from the legislature, from the regents, and from the people of the state of Georgia. I'm not going too far. There's a search underway, and hopefully they'll complete that search by this summer, and then I'll return to the classroom where I'll do some teaching and do some research. I've been continuing my research. I had a PhD student that graduated a couple of year and a half ago, and he's currently at Penn State, and I hope to go back and teach some thermodynamics and heat transfer. The bad news is that the last time I had full responsibility for an entire course, I used chalk. But the good news is the first and second law of thermodynamics haven't changed. But it's great to be here, great to have been able to serve Georgia Tech, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you, Senator.
Let's go take some pictures. Wish my boys were going to be there.
Jeff, Central Most, from here?
Yeah, I'll call him.
This recent bill that was passed.
Mr. Secretary, will you read the resolution for our next special guests?
Senate Resolution 373 by Senator Moles of the 53rd and others, a resolution recognizing and commending Ken Hicks and for other purposes, whereas Ken Hicks began his radio career in 1979 at WMOC in Chattanooga and then moved to the legendary WFLI, and whereas Ken began singing Southern gospel music at age 16 and continues singing to this day, and whereas he recorded 10 Southern gospel music albums, and whereas Ken began working at US 101 in 1984 by hosting the Southern Gospel music program, The Gospel Road, and still continues the program. And whereas he was nominated in 2019 for induction into the Country Radio Hall of Fame. Now therefore be resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend Ken Hicks for his many contributions to Georgia's culture and arts. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. Chair would like to call upon the senator from the 53rd to introduce our special guest today.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a joy and an honor to be here today to recognize Ken Hicks Ken Hicks began his radio career in 1979 at WMOC in Chattanooga and then moved to the legendary WFLI in Chattanooga. These North Georgia boys have to work in Chattanooga, but they're well known in Northwest Georgia. Beginning singing Southern gospel music at the age of 16, which he continues today, recorded 10 Southern gospel music albums, inducted into the Tri-State Gospel Music Hall of Fame 2010, began working at US 101, which is a legendary country western station in Chattanooga that covers Northwest Georgia. And he did that in 1984 is when he started hosting the Southern Gospel Music program, The Gospel Road. It still continues that program today. Nominated for 15 times by the Singing News, the Gospel DJ of the Year, and won the award in 1995. He won the CMA Award for Radio Personality of the Year this year in 2019 with his morning show with co-host David White. He has won 2 Country Radio Broadcasting Award for Radio Personality of the Year in 2019 and 2011. Nominated in 2019 and for induction into the Country Radio Hall of Fame. His on-the-air personality has contributed to making US 101 the #1 rated station in the market for 91 consecutive years in America, the most by any country radio station in America. As part of US 101, he has helped raise more than $17 million for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. Also has helped provided Christmas music to thousands of disabled children through US 101 Christmas for Children Forgotten Child program. He is married to Linda, and they have 4 children and 3 grandchildren. Would you help welcome Ken Hicks from Fort Oglethorpe, US 101.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you much.
Thank you, Senator Mullis. I certainly do appreciate this honor, and it's a joy to be here today and to see how the Senate works, and this has been wonderful. Thank you for the honor. I'd like to introduce my wife, Linda, my son, Justin, Daniel White, who also does the morning show with me on US 101, my general manager at US 101, Nicole Hartman, and I have great friends over there. Once again, thank you very much. I appreciate the honor.
Mr. Secretary, will you read the resolution for our next special guests?
Senate Resolution 211 by Senator Thompson the 14th and others, a resolution recognizing and honoring Vernon M. Keenan for his devotion and service to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation for 45 years and for other purposes. Whereas Vernon M. Keenan has always been a natural leader, during his career working at the GBI, he has been promoted to every rank within the agency's investigative division since beginning his career as a special agent in 1973. And whereas through his unwavering commitment to the safety and security of citizens both domestic and abroad, he was appointed director of the GBI by Governor Perdue in 2003 and then reappointed by Governor Deal in 2011. And whereas the countless sacrifices Vernon has given to ensure the continued protection of Georgians are a true testament to his rare and impossibly impeccable character, along with being a true gentleman, he is also a natural leader who looks after the welfare of all individuals under his purview. Now therefore be resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and honor Vernon M. Keenan for not only his time serving at the GBI, but also his character that is an inspiration to all Georgians. That concludes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. It is a great honor to call upon the senator from the 14th to introduce a special guest who has been such an incredibly big part of Georgia's story, protecting so many of us over just such a long, distinguished career. I'd like to call upon the senator from the 14th to finish the introduction.
Thank you, Governor. It is quite an honor today to have up here on our rostrum my good friend Vernon Keenan. It's interesting, when he retired, I reached out to Nellie and some others and said, you know, it's only appropriate that we bring him in here and recognize him for all the years of dedication and sacrifice for us as Georgians. And true to form, everyone said he's not coming back. He's served his time, and he appreciates it, but you know, he wants to spend time with his family and allow the new director and the process to take its place. So I reached out to Vernon, and as Vernon's always said, If there's anything I can ever do, Senator, let me know. I said, Vernon, I need a favor. He said, you name it. I said, perfect. I need you to come to the Senate chamber and allow us to recognize you properly for all that you've done. And so today, I'd just like to let everyone know how much I appreciate my friend and how we need to stand and let him know for the 45 years of sacrificing his time and his family to be able to protect us. And the mark that will be left for years is the opportunity I had to work with him on the GBI Center that we're still standing up over in Augusta. And that cyber center is not only just for Georgia, but across the country. And so with that, we please recognize Vernon Keenan as he steps up here and says a few words.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator Thompson, and thank you for this body for having me here. It gives me an opportunity to thank the hard-working men and women at the Georgia Bureau of Investigation who work every day doing their duty, protecting the citizens of this state and this nation. Their work made me look good. And I'm fortunate today to have with me my wife of 47 years, Joan, and my youngest son, Jackson. And also we have with us the new GBI director, Vic Reynolds, and who's doing an outstanding job and will continue to do that because we got great men and women at the GBI. I want to thank this body for all of the great laws that you have passed during my tenure at the GBI. Laws which protect the children of this state, laws which protect elderly Georgians. We have some of the toughest laws in the nation, and thanks to this body for working with law enforcement to see that we have the tools to do our job. Thank you very much.
Mr. Secretary, will you read the resolution for our next set of special guests?
Senate Resolution 297 by Senator Jones of the 25th and others. A resolution congratulating and commending Charles Johnson for his outstanding contributions to advocacy and awareness of maternal health concerns facing Georgia families and for other purposes. Whereas Charles Johnson was recently awarded the 2017 Carolyn Wetzel Continuum Award by the Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies Coalition of Georgia. And whereas Charles has played an integral role as a member of the Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies Coalition of Georgia Program Advisory Committee. And whereas Charles founded For Kira for Moms after the sudden passing of his wife, Kira. And whereas Charles and For Kira for Moms worked diligently with Congress to pass the Preventing Maternal Deaths Act, House Resolution 1318, to combat the maternal death crisis in the United States. Now therefore be resolved by the Senate that the members of this body congratulate Charles Johnson on receiving the 2017 Carolyn Wetzel Continuum Award, commend him for his many outstanding contributions on behalf of the families of Georgia, and extend best wishes for his continued growth, development, and success. That concludes the order.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call upon the senator from the 12th to help introduce our special guest today.
Good morning, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President. American women are dying from childbirth at a higher rate than in any other developed country. Kira and Charles Johnson were excited to welcome a second son into their family. Langston was to be delivered, like his older brother, by cesarean section on April 12, 2016. The Johnsons knew what to expect and were prepared for Kira's recovery, or so they thought. While Kira was still in the hospital, Charles noticed blood in her catheter. He alerted the medical staff immediately, but hours would pass before Kira could get a CT scan. By the time she went into surgery, it was too late. Kira died 11 hours after delivering her baby. Of all the states, Georgia ranks 43rd for premature births, 47th for low birth weight babies, 45th for infant mortality, and 50th for maternal mortality. Importantly, we continue to see disparities in outcomes for women and infants, and especially in rural areas of the state. This morning, the senator from the 25th has invited Mr. Johnson, along with the boys, to visit this Senate and talk about a crisis not only in the state of Georgia, but a crisis in America.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Mr. President, for allowing us today. This hit close to home as the senator from the 12th was explaining the stats that are real in the state of Georgia. It hit close to home to me because Charles Johnson, our special guest here today, he and I were classmates in high school at Woodward Academy together, and I've known Charles since my freshman year at Woodward, and he and I developed a special bond then and remained friends to this day. And when I heard the news of his the passing of his wife under the circumstances that it should occurred, I immediately wanted to see what you could do for a friend and a fellow parent. But Charles has done a wonderful job of raising two beautiful boys, and he has been on a crusade of making awareness, not just here in the state of Georgia, but all over the nation. I'm so impressed with what he's been able to do on the national level, and just want to do whatever I can, and I'd love for this body to be a part of doing whatever we can to help make this terrible situation real and come up with solutions for it. So I'm going to yield my time to Mr. Charles Johnson.
Good morning. George, we've got work to do. First and foremost, I want to say a special thank you to my brother, Bert Jones. And, I've known Bert for what really is almost half of a lifetime. And a lot of you all know that Bert is exceptional in a lot of ways, and he still looks like he can play. But he was an exceptional athlete, and, a couple of my high school teammates are up there in the gallery. I appreciate y'all coming for support. And, Bert always had this cool, calm leadership style, right? And even, we might get into the huddle, and we might not be sure about the play that the coach called. But when Bert got in there, you felt that everything was going to be okay, man. And so, Bert, I appreciate you. I'm grateful, and I'm so excited about what the future holds for you here in the state of Georgia, and I'm with you all the way. So let me say this. I'm going to be brief. Those of y'all who've heard me speak know that I can brag about my wife all day. And I was lucky enough to meet a woman that absolutely changed my life. We talk about my wife, Kira. We're talking about a woman that raced cars, that ran marathons, that was a skydiver, that spoke 5 languages fluently. And so we were extremely blessed. I always wanted to be a dad. Extremely blessed to welcome our first son, Charles, who's right here, in September of 2014. Overjoyed when we found out we were welcoming our second son, Langston, in April of 2016. We walked in to the hospital on April 12th of 2016 for what we expected to be the happiest day of our lives, and walked straight into a nightmare. Shortly after the cesarean section, we were taken back to recovery, and as the senator mentioned, I noticed blood in my wife's catheter. Brought it to the attention of the doctors and the nurses, and they ran tests. Along with the CT scan was supposed to be performed stat. Keep in mind, this is around 4 o'clock. 5 o'clock comes, no CT scan. 6 o'clock comes, no CT scan. 7 o'clock comes. My wife, my mother-in-law were all there begging, pleading for them to take action. We were told to wait, that the CT scan was coming. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. It wasn't until after midnight that my wife was finally taken back for surgery. As I'm walking next to my wife's bed and I'm holding her hand, she's saying to me, "Baby, I'm scared. I'm scared." And I'm telling her everything's going to be okay. As she gets to those double doors, the doctor says to me, "It's not a big deal. We're going to go back into the same incision we made earlier. We're going to find out what's going on. We're going to fix it. She'll be back in 15 15 minutes. When they opened Kira up, there were 3.5 liters of blood in her abdomen because her condition had been allowed to deteriorate for more than 10 hours. And there was nothing that they can do to save her. Kira deserved better. Women all over this country deserve better. And right here in the state of Georgia, women deserve better. So let me be clear on what it is that I expect. And even though I'm a guest today, I'm here respectfully demanding. I'm here respectfully demanding that the members of this body put aside partisan differences and come together and work aggressively to find solutions to this maternal mortality crisis in our state. I'm here respectfully demanding that you bring to the table stakeholders like Healthy Mothers and Healthy Babies of Georgia, who are here represented behind me with Elise and Pamela. Groups like the March of Dimes, who are working relentlessly to turn this epidemic around. And the reality is that in the state of Georgia, we are 50th. We lead the country in mothers dying in birth. And the statistics are horrifying, but let me be clear about this, that there's no statistic that can quantify what it's like to tell an 18-month-old that his mother's never coming home. There's no set of matrices that can begin to quantify what it's like to tell a son that will never know his mother just how amazing she is. So as I said, I'm respectfully demanding that the state of Georgia send a loud, definitive message to this country that mothers and babies matter. Thank you very much for your time. God bless the state of Georgia.
We have some special guests with us today that we'd like to recognize. I'd like to call upon the Pro Tem to introduce our special guest today.
Thank you, Mr. President. It gives me great pleasure to introduce a great friend of mine, a great friend of Georgia, and a great friend of the United States. Immediately to our north, the country of Canada stretches from our northern border all the way to the Arctic Circle, second only in mass eclipsed by Russia. The country of Canada is our great trading partner, our great cultural partner, our great neighbor, and has been for many, many years. To the west, you've got the city of Vancouver that's film-centric and very much involved in movie making, and much of that is transferred to Georgia and back and forth from Canada. You've got the French-speaking areas of Quebec and Montreal and their great cultural impact. You've got the vast city of Toronto with this diverse economy and a very impactful trading partner in terms of air routes and in terms of transportation and in terms of trade and fintech and agriculture. Plus, you've got the capital of Canada, Ottawa, which is a great partner of ours as well. So I'd like to introduce to you the Consulate General from the country of Canada, the Honorable Nadia Theodore.
Thank you very much, everybody. I will be brief. I just wanted the opportunity today to say hello to each and every one of you. It is an honor to be here in your house to introduce myself to you. It is an honor to represent Canada here in Georgia. As Georgia's #1 trading partner and #1 customer, Canada is indeed, as Senator Miller has said, your friend, partner, and ally in business and in defense and security. With over 300 companies set up right here across Georgia, employing over 300,000 people, we really truly believe that this partnership that we have built over many, many years is ripe for strengthening and deepening. And so, over the next 4 years, during my appointment here in Georgia, it will be an honor for me to work with each and every one of you to strengthen and deepen the relationship between Canada and Georgia. Thank you very much.
All right, now it's time to move on to points of personal privilege. Does any senator wish to rise for a point of personal privilege? Moving on, you've got a consent calendar of privilege resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to rise? You have a consent calendar of privilege resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? For what purpose does the senator from the 41st rise? All right, going back to the schedule, you've got a consent calendar of privilege resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Is there objection to adoption of the resolutions on the consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the resolutions on the consent calendar are adopted. Will the secretary read 2 more resolutions for us?
Senate Resolution 381 by Senator Williams of the 39th, a resolution honoring the life and memory of Lonnie C. King, Jr. and for other purposes.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolutions? Hearing none, the resolutions are adopted. Would you read the next?
Senate Resolution 385 by Senator Beach of the 21st and others, a resolution recognizing and commending J. Mark Burkhalter for his dedicated service to Johns Creek and the state of Georgia and for other purposes. That concludes the order.
Is there objection to adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw or commit? You have a consent calendar of local bills before you. Mr. Secretary, are there any objections filed to the bills on the local consent calendar?
Mr. President, there are no objections filed.
Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the Committee on State and Local Government, which is favorable to the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. The question is on the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill on the local consent calendar, the yeas are 49, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. For what purpose does the majority leader rise?
Mr. President, I ask for unanimous consent that House Bill 35, House Bill 168, and House Bill 419 be engrossed.
Will the Secretary read the captions?
House Bill 419 by Representative Knight of the 130th and others. The bill will be titled enactment Title 40 of the OCGA relating to revenue and taxation so as to define the terms Internal Revenue Code, Internal Revenue Code of 1986, and for other purposes. House Bill 168 by Representative Taylor 173rd and others. The bill will be titled enactment Code Section 4883 of the OCGA relating to exemption from sales and use tax so as to extend an exemption from sales and use tax for 5 additional years and for other purposes. And House Bill 35 by Representative Watson the 172nd and others. The bill will be titled enactment Code Chapter 8 of Title 40 of the OCGA relating to sales and use taxes so as to create an exemption from state and sales and use tax for certain poultry diagnostic and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
The Majority Leader has moved that House Bill 35, House Bill 168, and House Bill 419 be engrossed. Is there objection? There's objection. Would the Majority Leader like to speak? He waves. The minority, he waves. The Majority Leader has moved that House Bill 35, 168, and House Bill 419 be engrossed. All those in favor of the motion will vote yea. For what purpose does the senator from the 26th rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. President, has anybody given us a figure, if we pass this, how much it's going to cost us and where we're going to get the money from? I mean, every time we give a tax break, that means that that's money that's not going into our general treasury. Does anybody have any idea, if we do this, how much would it cost us in doing this?
I believe that's up to each and every senator to deliberate on their own. The Majority Leader has moved that House Bill 35, 168, and House Bill 419 be engrossed. All those in favor of the motion will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machines. On the motion, the yeas are 33, the nays are 18. This motion has prevailed, and House Bill 35, House Bill 168, and House Bill 419 are engrossed. We are now moving on to the rules calendar. Mr. Secretary, will you read the caption of House Bill 35?
House Bill 35 by Representative Watson, the 172nd, and others. The bill will be titled enactment Chapter 8 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to sales and use taxes so as to create an exemption from state and sales and use tax for certain poultry diagnostic and disease monitoring services and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair would like to recognize a senator from the 50th to speak to House Bill 35.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the Senate. House Bill 35 would establish a sales and use tax exemption for organizations providing poultry diagnostic and disease monitoring services. This would impact the poultry diagnostic lab in Gainesville, which receives a line item appropriation from the Department of Agriculture in the amount of approximately $3 million per year. So it is being funded with state money, and this would provide an exemption for the sales and use tax. Mr. President, if there are no questions, I'll yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 48th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the chairman yield?
I will.
Sir, is there a fiscal note for House Bill 35?
This bill was presented last year, and there was a fiscal note last year. The amount of the appropriation has not changed. So the identical bill last year had a fiscal note of $150,000.
$150,000.
That's correct.
And is that fiscal note from last year actually available then? Oh, you got it?
I have it right here.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 26th. He waves. Chair recognizes the senator from the 52nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. With Senator Yield,
I will.
you already answered one of the questions on that. There are 3 finance bills here today, and 2 of them don't have a fiscal impact, and yours is the only one that does. And I would agree with you that $150,000 is the appropriate figure.
Thank you.
You have no more questions, Senator.
Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? The chair hears none, and the previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 48, the nays are 4. This bill having received the requisite constitutional majority is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, will you read the caption of House Bill 168?
House Bill 168 by Representative Taylor, 173rd, and others. The bill will be titled an act to amend Code Section 4883 of the OCGA relating to exemptions from sales and use tax so as to extend an exemption from sales and use tax for 5 additional years regarding the sale or use of tangible personal property to certain nonprofit health centers, to extend an exemption for 5 additional years with respect to certain nonprofit volunteer health clinics, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair would like to recognize the senator from the 8th to speak to House Bill 168.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a renewal of the sales and use tax exemption that has been on these not-for-profit health care centers. We've been doing this for as long as I can remember. There's 5 years sunset, so we're just renewing it. 5 years from now, you have a chance to review this again. Any questions? I'll try to answer them. Otherwise, I ask for your favorable consideration.
You have no questions, Senator. She waves. Would you like to speak? She's pushed the wrong button. Are you speaking? Do you want to speak? Chair recognizes the senator from the 48th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize, my timeliness was not good to ask the senator of the 8th about whether there was a fiscal note on this bill, and I have a continuing concern about bills that are presented to this body without fiscal notes, because we are supposed to be taking care of the taxpayers' money and being good stewards of that money. So I rise to voice that ongoing concern, and I have that concern for House Bill 168 as well. I yield the well.
You have questions. Chair recognizes the senator from the 52nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. With Senator Yield.
Yes, sir.
I do appreciate and share your concerns. I made a statement in the previous one that this one would not have a fiscal impact. It's simply we have 5-year sunsets that we try to deal with, and this is just continuing that 5-year sunset, and it's been certified as not having a fiscal impact. So would that answer the question?
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I did not hear that when you spoke last time.
Okay.
And I appreciate you chiming up and letting us know that.
Thank you.
Do you continue to yield?
Sure.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 45th.
Will the senator yield?
Yes, ma'am.
The senator from Gwinnett County, no less, and Fulton, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Senator, would you acknowledge the fact that when this original provision came up for a tax exemption, it did have a fiscal note, and unfortunately there's not that many new charity clinics, so it's pretty much the same as it was when it was originally submitted?
I assume the lady knows of what she speaks. As you know, I'm a freshman to this body. I do feel it is my duty to highlight and ask questions when fiscal notes are not attached, and I appreciate the gentleman who chimed in that there was no fiscal impact with respect to this bill, House Bill 168. But I do have a continuing concern about bills being presented and passed by this body that do not have fiscal notes, and therefore the taxpayers have no idea how much money is being spent, and I believe we owe them that obligation. I yield the well.
Senator has yielded the well. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? The chair recognizes the senator from the 41st.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, I think we're starting a bad tradition here. The author of the bill came down here. I had my light ready to ask him a question, and he didn't answer that question. And that question was about the fiscal impact. The senator from the 52nd said in this chamber that there's no fiscal impact. Is he being totally open and generous with us with his information? The fact is, it is a continuation of a policy, so it will not change what is the present status. But if we do not approve the extension, there is fiscal implications to the state. And we should at least discuss that or know what they are. So I applaud the senator from 48th for bringing this issue up. And I ask that in the future that we try, if possible, to at least stay in the well long enough to see if there's some pertinent questions. I know when you're being attacked or when it's totally a partisan barrage, that walking away may be the right thing to do. But many of us have legitimate questions, and I think that at least for a due period, you should try to respond to those. Thank you, Mr. President. I'll yield if there's any questions.
You have no questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? The chair hears none, and the previous question is ordered. Is there objection or agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 45, the nays are 7. This bill having received the requisite constitutional majority is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, can you read the caption of House Bill 185?
House Bill 185 by Representative Williamson of the 115th and others, a bill be titled enactment Chapter 1 of Title 7 of the OCGA relating to financial institutions to change certain definitions, to provide certain restrictions on the Commissioner of Banking and Finance, Deputy Commissioners, and Examiners to eliminate the expense fund requirements from various provisions, to provide additional grounds for the Department to disapprove of any proposed acquisition, to eliminate appropriated retained earnings requirements from various provisions and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair would like to recognize the senator from the 18th to speak to House Bill 185.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, colleagues. I've had the pleasure for the last 3 years to bring you the Department of Banking, that is our Department of Banking and Finance's general cleanup bill every year, and I have the privilege of doing that again this year. This is their housekeeping bill. It contains proposed legislative changes identified internally or that's been suggested by the industry over the course of the last year, in which we have had changes in the marketplace that need to be addressed. And so we bring that as part of the cleanup bill. The major goal of these efforts is streamlining or simplifying existing statutes to make the Department of Regulation more efficient and to ease the regulatory burden on financial institutions, but very importantly, while at the same time ensuring that banks and credit unions are safe and sound. The focus of the housekeeping bill is to help make Georgia more competitive. The bill contains revisions to bank, credit union, money service, business, money-to-money transmitters, sellers of payment instruments, check cashers, mortgage lenders, brokers, and loan origination laws. The legislation is supported by the Georgia Bankers Association, the Community Bankers Association, the Georgia Credit Union Affiliates, and the Mortgage Bankers Association of Georgia. This bill comes to you from the House, where it passed unanimously, and I will represent to you that I've not had one person come up and ask me any question about this that was not in favor of it or had any concerns about the bill. So with that, I offer it for your consideration and ask you to please vote for this bill. Mr. President?
You have no questions.
Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? The chair hears none, and the previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The question's on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 52, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, can you read the caption of House Bill 192?
House Bill 192 by Representative Powell, the 32nd, and others. A bill to be titled enacted in Chapter 39A of Title 43 of the OCGA relating to real estate appraisers so as to change certain provisions relating to real estate management companies to revise and provide for definitions and provide requirements for the establishment and maintenance of a real estate appraisal management company, to authorize the Georgia Real Estate Appraisers Board to establish certain rules and regulations for certain management companies and to collect and remit certain fees and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 51st to speak to House Bill 192.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I bring to you today House Bill 192. Came over from the House. There were no changes made to the bill in committee. Since the early 1990s, the federal government has had oversight of how the Georgia Appraiser Board regulates Georgia appraisers. Georgia enacted in 2010 the Appraisal Management Company Statute. The AMCs act as the third-party intermediary between an appraiser and a lender in an effort to reduce lender influence on appraisers when they're trying to appraise residential property to secure a mortgage. the federal government has the authority to oversee the Georgia Appraiser Board's regulations of the AMCs. This bill is simply a bill that's all technical, a lot of definitions in the bill. It updates the registration requirements, and it talks about the new board oversight responsibilities. It's very technical. It's about 15 pages long. There are roughly 180 of these appraiser management companies in Georgia, and they do produce a great business for our communities, mostly our residential home buyers. Mr. President, I'm happy to yield for any questions, or I'll yield the well.
You've done such a good job, you have no questions.
Thank you, sir.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection or agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the bill will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 52, the nays are 0. This bill having received the requisite constitutional majority is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, can you read the caption of House Bill 212?
House Bill 212 by Representative Perkle, the 155th and others, a bill be titled enactment Article 13 of Chapter 1 of Title 7 of the OCGA, relating to licensing of mortgage lenders and mortgage brokers so as to exempt retailers, retail brokers of manufactured homes or mobile homes, and residential contractors from the requirement to obtain a license as a mortgage loan originator, mortgage broker, or mortgage lender under certain circumstances and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 18th to speak to House Bill 212.
Good morning again, friends. All right, this is number 2 of 2 for me for the day. I bring to you House Bill 212, which effectively exempts retailers of manufactured mobile or modular homes from having to possess a mortgage broker license. And you may wonder, well, why is that the case? And the reason is that the business done by the mobile home industry, when they link people up, link purchasers up that need financing, they don't provide the financing advice. They don't actually provide the lending, and they don't control that. They simply link someone up with a mortgage lender. So that's the critical distinction when you look at this and think about what's different about this arrangement. So the lender is typically in these cases located out of state. The retailer finds himself being asked to facilitate the transaction by collecting documents and materials from whoever's going to purchase the mobile home and transmit that information on to the lender. Also, the retailer may be asked to communicate from the lender back to the customer at times when additional documents are necessary. The retailer is not receiving any form of payment or compensation for these type activities. The retailer's role is really limited in this mortgage transaction as merely one of a facilitator. House Bill 212 then allows them to do so without the need of a brokerage license, or really more to the point, clarifies that under these circumstances, people engaged in this business don't need a license. This situation is very similar to someone who, and many of us have purchased a car. It's that kind of financing arrangement. It comes to you without any opposition. It came out of the House 170 to, one opposition, 170 to 1. So not much, just one. With that, Mr. President, I'm happy to answer any questions.
You have no questions, Senator.
Thank you.
For what purpose does the senator from the 16th rise?
Mr. President, I move that excuse the senator from the 14th for business outside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 14th is excused.
Thank you, sir.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection or agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 53, the nays are 0. This bill having received the requisite constitutional majority is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, can you read the caption of House Bill 223?
House Bill 223 by Representative Dickey of the 140th and others, a bill will be titled and enacted in Chapter 14 of Title 12 of the OCGA relating to oil or hazardous material spills or releases, so as to provide for definitions, provide for an exception to notification of spills or releases, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 7th to speak to House Bill 223. From the 47th to speak to House Bill 223.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, ladies and gentlemen, I rise to give you this information about the bill. Basically, in 2018, Congress updated the Fair Agricultural Reporting Method Act. Said it requires us to update our records in Title 12, Chapter 14. This bill does that update. Basically, if a farmer's got a poultry house and his fan comes on, it's not a reportable expense or reportable item. I did want to let the senator from the 48th know there's no fiscal note, but we'll have a lot of fun doing it anyway. So if there are no questions, Mr. President,
You have no questions, Senator. Does any other senator wish to speak to the measure? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection or agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0. This bill having received the requisite constitutional majority is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, can you read the caption of House Bill 368?
House Bill 368 by Representative Taylor, 173rd, and others. A bill will be titled an act amend Title 33 of the OCGA relating to insurance to provide for the division of a domestic insurer into two or more resulting domestic insurers, to amend in Part 1 of Article 13 of Chapter 2 of Title 14 of the OCGA relating to the right to dissent and obtain payment for shares, so as to add the right to dissent and obtain payment for shares for a division of a domestic insurer and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor offers the following substitute to House Bill 368. Bill will be titled an act amend Title 33 of the OCGA relating to insurance, so as to provide for the division of a domestic insurer into two or more resulting domestic insurers, provide for definition, provide for a plan of division subject to approval by the insurance commissioner, to provide for a certificate of division, provide for the effect of a division, provide for the responsibilities of a resulting insurer, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 9th to speak to House Bill 368.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm here to present HB 368, which is the identical bill that we passed out of this chamber just a couple weeks ago. This is the House bill. We amended SB 124 just like we did in this chamber, and it deals with the division of insurance companies, domestic insurers, and they must they fall excuse me. They fall under the complete supervision of the insurance commissioner. There are provisions put in place that make sure that these companies are solvent and make sure they meet all the requirements of the Department of Insurance, just as the other company would be. So I will yield for any questions if there are any. Otherwise, I'll yield the well.
You have a question. Chair recognizes the senator from the 46th.
Thank you, Mr. President. With Senator yield.
I will.
My question is concerning Section 2, where we currently have a requirement for the Attorney General to approve any rules and regulations from the Insurance Commissioner. This waives that and allows them to promulgate rules and regulations without oversight by the Attorney General. What's the thinking behind that, or the rationale for that?
That came at the request of the Attorney General's office. They wanted to, due to the fact that they're both constitutional offices, they wanted to make sure the insurance commissioner had the rights to put forward their own rules and regulations and that sort of thing. So it comes at the request of the Attorney General's office.
Okay, thank you.
Do you continue to yield?
I will.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 53rd. He waives. Chair recognizes the senator from the 26th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gentlemen, yield.
I will.
Isn't it true that when insurance companies form and then they want to disinform, what I call, when I say disinform, in other words, they might want to separate, and they have to meet the same criteria as an insurance company coming in the state for the first time, which the rules are promulgated by the insurance commissioner. And since they have the authority to deal that and check with all of the actuarial parts of an insurance company, they decided they wanted to go ahead and deal with the folks who are doing the actuarial assignment of how the money is split up, how the companies are funded, to make sure that they are solvent.
That's correct, Senator. I went over that in more detail a couple weeks ago when we passed this exact same language out of this. But yeah, that's correct. Both entities that come from the division have to meet all the requirements of any insurance company in the state of Georgia.
You have no more questions, Senator.
I ask for favorable consideration. I yield the well.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair hears none. The question's on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 46, the nays are 5. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Mr. Secretary, can you read the caption of House Bill 374?
House Bill 374 by Representative LaHood of the 175th and others, the bill be titled enacted in Code Section 31-712.2 of the OCJ relating to regulation and licensing of assisted living communities, legislative intent, definitions, procedures, and requirements for medication aids so as to authorize certified medication aids to administer medications to residents under hospice care pursuant to a physician's written orders to amend Code Section 43-2612 relating to exceptions to the licensure of registered professional nurses so as to provide that the administration of medication by certified medication aids under specific criteria does not require licensure as a registered professional nurse and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 11th to speak to House Bill 374.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 374 is a result of collaboration between the operators of assisted living communities and our seniors who want to age in place in the Department of Community Health. Just a brief explanation, liquid morphine is usually used during the transition from life to death. In that last 24 hours, it's used for pain and it's used for agitation. And this allows certified medication aids to provide that medication during that last 24 hours to prevent delays in care. Mr. President, I'd be glad to yield for questions.
You have no questions. You do have a question, if you yield. Chair recognizes the senator from the 26th.
Thank you, Mr. President. To my warm, close, and trusted friend, did you read about the article that happened in Florida where they were over-medicated and there were 25 nurses suspended because of giving of the medication morphine and they were over-medicated?
I think I didn't read the article. I'd be glad to review it if you can get it to me. But one of the things in this bill is requirements for, number one, the medication to only be given by a nurse the first time after a physician's order, and they don't allow more doses than can be legally prescribed in the institution for 24-hour periods. So those are just parameters in place from a safety standpoint. It's not like they can give the medication every hour, which would result in an overdose.
You have no more questions.
Are you well?
Does any other senator wish to speak for the measure? The chair hears none. The previous question's order. Is there objection or agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The question's on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 48, the nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, can you read the caption of House Bill 419?
House Bill 419 by Representative Knight, 130th, and others. The bill will be titled enacted in Title 48 of the OCJ, relating to revenue and taxation so as to define the terms Internal Revenue Code and Internal Revenue Code of 1986, thereby incorporate certain provisions of the federal law into Georgia law, provide for provisions relating to partnership returns and adjustments. For other purposes, Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance recommends that this bill do pass. My Senator Hufstedler, 50 seconds. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 52nd to speak to House Bill 419.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the annual IRS update to put us in conformance with the federal tax code. Now, Congress didn't do much this year as far as IRS policy. Let me add that part to it. And so there's really not a lot of changes there. There's a couple of date changes. There was one issue of irrevocable elections that the committee had some concerns about. We talked with the Georgia Society of CPAs that would represent their clients, and they were good with the change. So this is really just a house cleaning annual update bill of putting us in conformance with the federal government on IRS. If there's no questions, I'll yield the well.
You have no questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? Questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 49, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, can you read the caption of House Bill 501?
House Bill 501 by Representative Petrea of the 166 and others, a bill to be entitled to act to amend Article 4 of the Chapter 4 of the Title 27 of the OCGA relating to seafood so as to provide for mariculture development, to amend Code Section 12-5-295 of the OCGA relating to applicability of activities in coastal marshlands so as to revise and add exemptions certain, to provide for related matters, to provide for effective dates and applicability and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Committee on Senate of Natural Resources and Environment recommends that this bill do pass. That concludes the order.
I'd like to recognize the senator from the 3rd to speak to House Bill 501.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the same exact oyster farming bill that we passed, I believe it was last week, and I would just encourage your support for it. On your desk is a note from the Commissioner of Natural Resources. One of the concerns that had been expressed about the bill was that it did not create a committee to involve the members of the oyster farming community, and as you can see, he is committed to do that. It's just like the advisory committees for crabbing, shrimping, and finfish. They're not created by statute, but they're created by the DNR to assist them in applying those rules and regulations. So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I'll be glad to yield the well unless there are any questions.
You have a question. Chair recognizes the senator from the 42nd for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
Yes.
Senator, I've gotten from a few businesses in my district and some other folks issues where they say, while there's tremendous potential for the mariculture industry in Georgia, that this at the outset sets up a scheme that would really over-regulate it. And I was wondering if you have any response to that.
Sure. Well, first of all, I don't think it overregulates it. One of the criticism is that the season is just not automatically open all year round. But as we discussed last time, there is concern for disease, and during the summer months, the bacteria that causes that disease is present in the waters. A harvester can obtain permission to harvest year round, but we need some extra regulation on that to ensure the safety of the consumer. Because, while people do eat oysters fried or steamed, they're also consumed raw, and you have to be very careful about that for public safety reasons.
Thank you. I'm certainly married to someone from South Carolina. I know the old adage about the ends of the month, but isn't it true that some other states, notably South Carolina and others, they don't kind of go by the old adage, they actually use time and temperature data, which would seem to be a better way to do it?
Right. Well, if you'll look at the bill, you are permitted to apply for a permit if you're cultivating the oysters in order to operate year-round. And if you'll look at lines 226 through 243, that's the provision in the bill that allows that to happen. So to say that we cannot harvest oysters year-round is simply not correct.
But if the center will continue to yield, that would be pretty limited the way I read it, and I think the concern out of some of the folks.
A master harvester may request permission to harvest shellfish during periods when the shellfish season is closed. Normally, that grants permission to do that. And, we do this for the other seafood industries as well. The shrimping industry is subject to having the seasons opened and closed, depending on a lot of variables, environmental variables. And, we should certainly give the department that flexibility to do so as well. And for public safety reasons. And two, you don't want to have a closure because that can affect the rest of the industry as well. And so I think that from the perspective of the department, I'm told that they certainly want to see oyster farming come to Georgia, and they want to see the business expand and grow. But we do need to have some safety regulations and controls. And you have to remember, too, that this is something new that we're starting in Georgia. So I think there may be a desire to have a little extra oversight to make sure that we do it right. And my suggestion is that we go with what we have. Let's see how this is going. There will be an advisory committee where members of the industry will be on that committee. They will provide input to the department on rulemaking. This has been very productive for our shrimping and crab and finfish industries in Georgia. So let's follow that same model with this. Let's see how it goes. If we need to make adjustments, we will, but let's err on the side of public safety.
Will you yield for one more question?
Yes.
I certainly understand the desire to be cautious. Another concern that I had heard is that the fee structure would actually put a number of businesses out of business.
Well, right now, the bill does set the minimum fee for the intertidal leases at $15 an acre. Right now, the lowest rent that's charged is $14.20 per acre. So you may see, some may see an increase. If you have that lease, it'd be 80 cents per acre.
Thank
you.
you.
So it's not that much.
Do you continue to yield?
I'll take one more question.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 55th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will you yield?
Yes, yes.
My question is similar to the senator from the 42nd. There are some concerned farmers that already have existing businesses, and they are concerned that this will raise their fees by $1,000. Can you address that?
Well, I know that right now the minimum fee, the lowest fee charged to a clam farmer or a harvester of wild oysters is $14.20 per acre. This bill sets the minimum fee at $15 per acre. So in that regard, we're looking at an increase of 80 cents per acre for a lease.
Well, I guess if they
Per
own
year.
a lot of acres, then that would tend to up their fees more.
Well, but again, that's the minimum fee, and there are many leases, there's some leases that are at 15 and some that are more.
Thank you.
You have no more questions.
I'll yield the will. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 2nd to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I rise to bring caution to House Bill 501. Although I also received a letter talking about the advisory board, and I think the advisory board helps this bill, but the question remains, who are the members of this advisory board? Who makes the appointments on the advisory board? How many would be on the advisory board? Where would they come from? The advisory board is a great idea, and it helps this bill, but what would have been better if the advisory board would have been in the legislation to tell us that it will happen, or it shall happen, or it may happen. That's great. But what makes it happen if it's being ingrained into the existing legislation, and that we don't have. I'm not against oyster farming. I think it's good for our great state. But we need the people that's going to be actually doing the task, doing the skill, a part of an advisory board to make those decisions. And I don't see this in the existing bill. The Georgia Advisory Board will put the stakeholders in the committee making the decisions to make sure it works. I like that the commissioner wants it to happen. I would just like to see it in the bill. With that, Mr. President, I yield the will.
The senator has yielded the well. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Chair recognizes the senator from the 7th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. First off, I rise obviously in support of House Bill 501. You know, we passed Senate Bill 182 out of this body not too long ago, which is identical to House Bill 501, and we passed Senate Bill 182 unanimously out of this Senate chamber and sent it to the House. We have had much conversation in our committee over this legislation, over an hour and a half of testimony, and it is the result of the bill that you see before you. In regards to the advisory panel, I think it's important to note that all of the advisory panels that currently exist, DNR established. They are not statutorily established. They're not in code. The advisory panel for shrimp, the advisory panel for finfish, the advisory panel for crab were all created by DNR. They were not created through statute. The commissioner is, in the letter that he has on your desk, is committed to creating the same advisory panel for the oyster industry, just like we have for the other industries in our state. And I trust the commissioner and the DNR to do that, because I know he is a good and honorable man and will hold up his word in making that happen. So because of that, I don't believe we have to put it in statute, because none of the others are in statute, and I think we can make it work with the way it is. The bill that you have before you is an attempt to start an industry in our state that we do not currently have. We do not farm oysters in Georgia. And this is a way that we can make sure that we create a new industry, that we can create new jobs, and we can create new opportunities for citizens on the coast to have a way to continue to provide for industry for our coastal friends on the coast of our great state. I think this is a great step in that direction. I would encourage you to support the bill. And if there are no questions, Mr. President, I yield the will.
You have a question. Chair recognizes the senator from the 13th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the senator yield?
I'll yield.
Isn't it true that this falls under the purview of the Department of Natural Resources?
That is true.
And isn't it true, Senator, that there's a board that's appointed that oversees the operations of the Department of Natural Resources?
That is also true.
And isn't it true, Senator's last question, that I had a conversation with the chair of that board just a couple of weeks ago, and he was very excited about this, and
yes, sir.
They plan to see this through, and I intend to support this bill?
And I appreciate that, and I understand that the board and the chairman support the bill fully.
You have no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other senators wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The question's on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 35, the nays are 19. This bill having received the requisite constitutional majority is therefore passed. For what purpose does the majority leader rise?
Mr. President, I move that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Thursday, 21 March.
Mr. Secretary, will you read the announcements?
Rules will meet upon adjournment in 450 of the Capitol. Insurance and Labor will meet at 1 p.m. in 310 of the CLOB. Finance will meet at 1 p.m. in MES 1. Education and Youth will meet at 2 p.m. in 307 of the CLOB. Public Safety will meet at 2 p.m. in MES 1. Health and Human Services will meet at 3 p.m. in 450 of the Capitol. And Judiciary will meet at 4 p.m. in 307 of the CLOB. That concludes the order.
For what purpose does the Senator from the 26th rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it at all possible that the House could, that the Senate could stay open so that local bills could be introduced today and get their readings based on the Constitution, that they must have 3 readings prior to?
For what purpose does the senator from the 26th rise?
I ask unanimous consent that I'm going to withdraw the motion, but ask that the Senate indulge me in withdrawing it since we've got a chance to work it out.
Is there any objection? Chair hears none, and the motion is withdrawn. Chair would like to recognize the senator from the 36th for an announcement.
Thank you, colleagues. Mr. President, I just want to underscore an invitation today to the Voting Rights Caucus lunch in CLOB 406 upon adjournment. We will be hearing from the ACLU and the Coalition for the People's Agenda for remarks on voting rights in Georgia and our legal posture going forward. So we are welcome to attend. Come one, come all. We hope to see you there. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from Bremen for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. Once again, I want to invite everyone to our legislative prayer fellowship. That'll be Thursday morning, 7:15 in 107 of the Capitol.
The majority leader has moved that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Thursday, March 21st, 2019. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes clearly have it. The Senate stands adjourned.